What is it with all of these underage girls going after 30-year-olds and then talking about how mature they are because they're dating a 30-year-old? Um, you're dating a child molester. That's not mature, that's stupid. Dating an older man does not make you mature. Matter of fact, that shows that you are not mature. A lot of these child molesters and rapists, and mind you, statutory rape is still rape. It's just like when you're in prison, inmates aren't allowed to have sex. They can't legally give consent. So if you have sex with an inmate, you are literally, legally a rapist. But you're mature. See, this is one of them fake ass things we need to stop teaching girls. You are not more mature than boys. You're not. You're just as superficial. You are just trained to show it differently. You are just as selfish. You are trained to show it differently. If you were mature at 15, what do you mean by mature? Does that mean that you grew some memories? Is that what you consider maturing? Physically mature? Yes. Physically, girls mature sooner than boys. On average. Average. That doesn't mean that every little girl goes through puberty at 9 and every little boy goes through puberty at 15. Now we get to hear from all these, I just got to call them what they are. They're little kids. They are little kids. They are not adults. They are not mature. And just because at 12 years of age you were taller than all the boys in your class doesn't mean that mentally you are more mature than the boys in your class. I'm going to stop for a moment. I got this pink thing in my hand. I got two pink things in my hand. Pink is my favorite color. It is my favorite color because men are afraid of it. Are all men afraid of the color pink? No. But because so many men are afraid of the color pink, pink is the manliest color out there. It's manly. Pink is not a girl's color, it's a man's color. I've been hearing my whole life about how pink is a girl's color. Pink is only for girls. Well, this pink thing right here is not just for girls. This here is pepper spray. That's right. It's got a little locking tab on top so I don't accidentally shoot myself in the face with it. It's pink and it's fine. When it comes to maturity, you think that you're more mature than the boys in your class. So you're going to date a 30-year-old drug dealer. He's already got a house. You don't have to get a job when you graduate from high school in 3 years because your boyfriend already has a house and he's an old ass man by comparison with you. I've heard many 19-year-olds refer to a 25-year-old as old. He's an old man. This old man was looking at me. One of the ladies who was complaining on one of these videos, she was complaining that a man offered to help her. This man was an old man. So instead of accepting his help, she got on YouTube and Facebook and wanted to make fun of this old man for being old. How he was a creeper because he saw her having problems and saw her struggling and he offered to help. She admitted that she was having those issues, that she was having problems, and that she really did need help, that she was having difficulties doing it herself. She admitted that it was because of that struggle that the old man came up and offered to help her. Now, do we know that this is actually an old man? I mean, she doesn't have a description saying that he had gray hair and wrinkles. We just have he was an old man. Now, if a 19-year-old is going to call a 25-year-old an old man, well, then a 15-year-old should probably think of a 30-year-old as an old man. If you are immature enough to date a child molester, you are not mature. You're just not. There was another video where, well, there's a lot of these, where they ask a woman about cheating. If a woman cheats, whose fault is it? It's a man's. If a man cheats, whose fault is it? It's a man's. So it's always a woman's fault? No. It's always the man's fault. Always. Now, this girl who was, in specific, the last one that I saw making this comment, she's 19 as well. And she's talking about how she was in a 5-year relationship with an older man. And she's 19. She's broken up with this man. This man was a grown ass man that she was dating. And she wants to talk about her maturity. You know, yes, I get that I'm 19 and I'm young, but I'm mature for my age. I dated a 30. Oh my God. You dated a 30-year-old and think that makes you mature. No, that makes you gross. See, here's the thing about the little girls down on Pearl Street. There's a reason that we tried to run them off. First of all, there's the drugs. All right. We know that there are undesirables in our community, and we don't pretend that they don't exist. The homeless people do not pretend that the child molesters that are sent our way, and they are sent our way. Okay. I have no problems and no beefs about it. All right. It's the fact of the way that it is. If you want to be angry and argue about it, shove it up your ass. Okay? Pretty simple. The fact is, most homeless people have to deal with the massive influx of sex offenders that are poured out onto the streets. Most of these sex offenders were in houses. Now they're out on the streets because they get the same opportunities after getting out of prison that foster kids get when they turn 18 and get booted. None. There are actually more programs to help out sex offenders, a lot more. When I was growing up in the 80s, there were some, but now it's like, oh, we can rehabilitate these sick fucks who want to fuck little kids. You know, we also got to try to rehabilitate the little kids that are trying to get fucked. Natalie and Alicia Bollinger were down there selling drugs, selling heroin, selling meth for their dad to some of these homeless undesirables that any parent should know to try to keep their kids the fuck away from. But then we teach them that they're mature. They're more mature than boys. And we shove that into their heads starting very young, over and over and over again. It's kind of like the black community. We shove it in millions of black Americans' faces that anything that bad that happens to them must be because of the color of their skin. And it's simply not the case. If your son commits a robbery and he gets busted and he happens to be black, he didn't get busted for being black. He got busted for committing a robbery. And that's not saying that every black person out there is a robber. That's not to say every white person out there is not a robber. We sell a narrative and then we got to deal with idiots who want to run with that narrative as if it's the truth. And it's just simply not. If you are the parent of an autistic child, you need to go find a black woman who has sons. You ask her the speech that she had to give her son because he's black. You ask her to tell you that speech. And then you tell your autistic son those exact same words. Because statistically, your autistic son is at over double the risk of being killed by law enforcement that that black son is. If you have a son who is both autistic and black, you probably paid close attention to the situation with Elijah McClain in Colorado. You want to talk about how mature you are because you got kids. Having unprotected sex does not make you mature. Matter of fact, it proves that you are not mature. Those drugs that you've been doing, like Natalie, for example, wanted to do all those drugs. Imagine if she'd have gotten pregnant. Imagine what that kid would have had to go through. Imagine if it was Tim Beeson's kid, or Joey Moreno's kid, or worse, her father's. I want you to imagine that one of those times that Natalie was raped by her dad, what would have happened if she'd have gotten pregnant by her own father? And there is the possibility of that, mind you. There is the possibility that she was pregnant at one point in time by her own dad. There is that possibility. Now, does that mean that he did it? Does that mean that he actually got her pregnant? I don't know. I wasn't there. But Natalie also, she wanted to date me. She thought she was in love with me, so on and so forth. And we had several conversations about it where I thought I had talked her out of this. Because, see, here's the thing, little kids are gross. Okay? Jailbait is nasty. Just thinking of a little kid in that way, and mind you, yeah, Natalie was a grown adult. She was legally old enough to make her own decisions. She was legally old enough to decide who she did and did not want to hang out with. But she also loved her family and she wanted to make them happy. She wanted them to actually love her right. Did they ever? No. Fuck no. But like many other little girls, Natalie showed up on Pearl Street when she was 13 years old. She was already sliced up one arm and down the other. Self inflicted. Because her daddy was raping her and mommy didn't care. Now, these girls think that they're more mature. They bring little boys about their age that have crushes on them with them. They think they're more mature for dealing drugs, for hanging out with drug dealers, for hanging out with addicts. Then later on, they become addicts. And the boys who are their age are constantly trying to get their attention. Hey, why am I not good enough? And then those boys realize if they get the drugs, well, then somebody like Natalie will give them the time of day. Now, why did Natalie give me the time of day? I didn't have any drugs. Because I was good to her. Because I was honest with her. Because when she asked for my help, she got it. I mean, after I hurt my back, she was my only friend, my only actual friend. She was the only one who listened to my issues and actually did something about it. I couldn't travel because my back was that screwed up. I couldn't even get to work to earn the money that I needed to get on the fucking bus to go to work. And Natalie came and she rescued me from that. She rescued me from the harassment of the Boulder Police Department. And that was nightly. Now, she did show a decent amount of integrity at the very beginning, but then when she was embarrassed, she didn't mind destroying an innocent man's life and letting other people hurt me for her because she felt rejected. I didn't reject Natalie. She was never in the fucking running. See, before her, there was a girl named Jamie Curtis. And I thought I was in love with Jamie Curtis. Sort of. I reasoned to myself that if she was still interested in me after 6 or 8 months of me not putting out, I mean, she would, when I wasn't interested in her, she would throw herself at me like a $2 hooker. And of course, I'm not down with that. But then she would push it until I reciprocated. And as soon as I reciprocated, she was no longer interested. This is a game player. It's not maturity, it's immature. You're fucking around with other human beings' emotions for the entertainment of it. Meanwhile, out of all of the things that Jamie Curtis asked me to do, all of the things that she had me doing, literally not a single one of those things are things that she had to pretend that she was interested in me to get. It would have been better if she'd have been my friend and stayed my friend and not fucked with my emotions. But then her excuse for fucking with my emotions is that Chris Stegeman did it to her, so that makes it okay for her to do it to me. That's totally mature. Of course, she's also one of those people that used her son to manipulate others. I'm not okay with that. She used her son to manipulate 3 men at the same time while I was up there last. She was manipulating me, and she was manipulating both of her boyfriends. And she used her son to do it. That's not mature. Having a kid doesn't make you mature. Using your kid like that sure as hell doesn't make you mature. And guess what? She's not the only woman that I know who does this. Leslie Snell was afraid of going to jail for what she did. So she pretended that I threatened her children. Imagine that. This woman is 42 or 43. She's older than me. All right. She was several classes above me in high school. Of course, she tried claiming that I was the same age as her on the paperwork here. Imagine that. Is Leslie Snell mature for doing that? No, she is not. Her husband is older than her. Does that make her more mature? No, it does not. Now, people want to pretend that I'm a bad person for being friends with Natalie because they automatically assume that it must have been about sex. And then they want to say, oh, well, if my daughter was hanging out with somebody who's older than her, I wouldn't be okay. She's a grown ass adult, bitch. Back the fuck up off. Your daughter can go out with whoever she wants. She can date whoever she wants. She can be friends with whoever she wants. If you want to pretend that I'm some sort of a sicko for having friends, you're fucked in the head. Now, with Jamie, because she kept on expressing an interest in me, or so I thought, she was showing an interest in me, but it was back and forth. She would show an interest in me just enough that I reciprocated, and then she would back off. Of course, this is confusing as shit for me. I've never been in a relationship. What the fuck is going on here? With Natalie, I wasn't going to go through that. Sorry, I've been through that bullshit once. I'm not going through it again. If you think that you're interested in me, I'm going to talk you out of it. because I don't want the bullshit. Natalie was my best friend. It should have stayed that way. But then we had to deal with her sister, Alicia Bollinger's jealousy issues. Now, hopefully today, in about 3 hours, I got to be at an appointment to see my therapist. And then a couple hours after that, I got to go to another appointment to see my caseworker. After that, I might get back to going through my Facebook and showing you all of the messages between me and Maddie Boa, and all of the messages between me and Alicia Bollinger, and all of the messages between me and Natalie Bollinger. Now I'm going to end this video. There was a lot more I wanted to say, but there's another point that I need to make. And I'm going to try to make that point in my next video.